The council chamber stretched for what seemed like miles. Thousands of species sat in their designated seats, creating a rainbow of colors and shapes that would have amazed any human seeing it for the first time. But Hyen had seen it many times. He sat in the lower gallery, in seat number 3847, marked with Earth's simple blue and green symbol. Tier 3 species sat in the lower sections. The important species sat high above, where everyone could see them. Hyen adjusted his translator earpiece as the Vreth representatives stood to speak. The Vreth were tall, almost 8 feet, with dark purple skin and forearms. They controlled the largest military fleet in the galaxy. When they spoke, others listened. The Council recognizes the wisdom of shared resources, the Vreth speaker announced. His voice was deep and commanding. We propose new protocols for resource allocation. All Tier 3 worlds will contribute 40% of their strategic materials to the Council Reserve. This ensures galactic stability and protection for all members. Hyen felt his stomach tighten. 40%. That would cripple human expansion into space. He glanced at Ambassador Nari, who sat 3 rows ahead of him. She remained perfectly still, her face showing nothing. The proposal moved through the chamber like a wave. Species after species voted. The Pelphic Chancellor, an ancient being that looked like floating crystal formations, called for objections. Only 7 species raised their voting crystals. All of them were Tier 3. All of them were ignored. NAR, I finally stood. Earth requests clarification on compensation structures for contributed resources. The chamber fell silent. Several of the higher-tier species made sounds that the translator couldn't interpret. Hyen had learned those were sounds of amusement. Compensation? The Vreth speaker tilted his large head. Protection and council membership are your compensation. Perhaps Earth does not value these benefits? It was a threat wrapped in a question. Nari understood it perfectly. Earth values its council membership greatly. We simply seek to understand the terms fully. The terms are simple, the Pelphic Chancellor said, its crystalline voice ringing through the chamber. Younger species contribute. Established species guide. This has been our way for 10,000 years. Does Earth challenge 10,000 years of galactic peace? Nari bowed her head slightly. Earth does not challenge. Earth seeks to learn. Then the vote proceeds, the Chancellor declared. The final count was 847 in favor, 2 against. Earth abstained. Hyen watched the numbers appear on the massive display screens. Another piece of humanity's freedom, voted away by species who saw humans as little more than children playing at civilization. After the session ended, Hyen made his way through the crowded corridors of Talvera Prime Station. Beings of every description moved around him. Some had wings, some had tentacles, some were clouds of gas in containment suits. He had stopped being amazed by the diversity months ago. Now he just felt tired. Captain Hyen, a voice called. He turned to see Ambassador Nari approaching. She moved gracefully, despite the station's slightly higher gravity. Walk with me. They moved toward the observation deck, where massive windows showed the planet Talvera Prime below. It was beautiful, with purple oceans and golden continents. A paradise world that had been the Council's capital for millennia. You looked angry in there, Nari said quietly. Shouldn't I be? They're taking our resources, treating us like we're servants, not members. They're testing us, Nari corrected. They want to see if we'll fight or comply. If we fight, they have an excuse to push harder. If we comply, they think we're weak. So what do? Nari smiled slightly. We do what humans do best. We adapt. We learn. We prepare. She pulled out a small data chip. This is for Admiral Doyon. Eyes only. Make sure it reaches him through secure channels. Hyen took the chip carefully. What is it? What is it? Information. Every vote, every species, every pattern of behavior I've observed in 2 years of council sessions. We're being underestimated, Hyan. That's our greatest advantage right now. Thousands of miles away, on Mars, Jiwan stood in the center of the largest construction bay humanity had ever built. The bay was 5 miles long and 2 miles wide, carved into the Martian rock and hidden under layers of sensor-blocking materials. Around her, 300 engineers worked on a project that officially didn't exist. The ship taking shape before her was beautiful. Sleek lines, advanced armor plating, and engines that would make it the fastest vessel in known space. The fusion drive she had designed could push the ship to speeds the Council thought impossible for a Tier 3 species. Dr. Jiwan, her assistant Taiyang, approached with a tablet. The new graviton disruptor passed all tests. It cuts through standard Council shielding like it's not even there. Jiwan nodded, studying the data. Good. How many ships are in active construction? 47 in this bay. Reports from the lunar facilities say they have 63 more. Earth orbital stations have another 90 in various stages. 200 ships, all built in secret, all using technology that humanity had been carefully developing while pretending to be simple and primitive. The Council thought humans were barely capable of basic space travel. They had no idea what was being built in the shadows. Keep the work steady, Jiwan said. No rushing, no mistakes. We might be doing this for nothing. Maybe Earth and the Council will find a peaceful path forward. Taiyang looked at her with doubt in his eyes. Do you really believe that? Jiwan looked at the ship again. No, but I hope for it anyway. Hope doesn't cost anything. These ships cost everything we have. Back on Earth, Admiral Doyan sat in his office deep under the Pacific Ocean. The United Earth Defense Command had been built to survive anything. Nuclear war, asteroid strikes, even orbital bombardment. Its walls were 10 feet of reinforced concrete and titanium. Its systems were independent of all surface networks. He slid Nari's data chip into his secure reader and watched the information flow across his screens. Voting patterns, resource allocations, military movements, trade routes, everything she had gathered about how the Council really operated. One file caught his attention. It was labeled Vreth Survey Routes. He opened it and felt his blood run cold. The Vreth had been sending scout ships through human-controlled space for months. Not just surveying resources, mapping defenses, identifying strategic points. Planning. Du Yun activated his secure comb. Get me President Minji. Priority Alpha. The screen flickered to life, showing the president in her sole office. She looked tired. The weight of leading a unified Earth had aged her visibly in the 3 years since her election. Admiral, it's late. I know, ma'am. But you need to see this. He transferred the files, watched her face as she read them, saw the same cold realization hit her. They're preparing for something, she said quietly. Yes, ma'am. The question is whether we prepare back or wait to see what they do. Minji was silent for a long moment. Outside her window, the lights of Seoul sparkled in the night. 20 million people in that city alone. 7 billion on Earth. Colonies on Mars, the Moon, Europa, and Titan. All of humanity, balanced on the edge of a decision. We prepare, she said finally. Quietly, carefully, but we prepare. Activate protocol silence. Everything that could give us an advantage gets hidden. Everything that makes us look weak gets emphasized. We let them think we're helpless. And if they attack anyway, then we show them that humans didn't climb to the top of Earth's food chain by being helpless. Get our people ready, Admiral. All of them. The communication ended. Doyan sat in the darkness of his office, thinking about what was coming. Humanity had been quiet for 15 years, learning, watching, building. The council thought silence meant weakness. They were about to learn how wrong they were. 6 months passed like a slow-moving storm. Hyan watched from the observation deck of the UNS Horizon as the Council Enforcement Fleet entered the Sol system. 30 massive ships, each one larger than anything humanity had admitted to building. At their center, flying the purple and black colors of the Vreth Empire, came the flagship Domination. The name wasn't lost on anyone. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission from the lead vessel," his communications officer reported. "Put it through." The screen flickered to show a Vreth commander. This one was even larger than the speaker Hyan had seen at the council, with decorative metal plating across his shoulders that marked him as high military rank. "I am Commander Thel Karax of the Vreth Imperial Fleet. We are here under Council Resolution 847-2 to collect designated resources from human territories. You will provide access codes to Jupiter's moon facilities and coordinates for asteroid mining operations in the belt." Hyan kept his voice level. "Commander, Earth requests information on compensation timelines and amounts." Thel Karax's 4 eyes narrowed. "All 4 of them. Compensation? Your compensation is continued protection and council membership. You should show gratitude, not make demands." "I'm not making demands. I'm requesting clarification on terms that were promised. The terms are simple, human. You give what the council requires. We ensure your primitive world continues to exist. These are the terms. Accept them, or we will discuss your species' continued membership status." The transmission cut off. Hyan stood there, fists clenched. His crew looked at him, waiting for orders. Orders he didn't have the authority to give. "Send a report to Earth Command," he said quietly. "Mark it urgent. And get me a private line to Ambassador Nari." On Earth, President Minji sat across from Admiral Doyun in the secure bunker. Between them, holographic displays showed the Council fleet taking up positions around Jupiter. They were being efficient about it, professional, like they had done this 1,000 times before. "They're not just taking helium-3, Doyon said, highlighting sections of the display. "They're mapping our defensive positions, recording our ship movements. This is reconnaissance disguised as resource collection. How long until they realize our real ships aren't the ones they're seeing?" Minji asked. "Hard to say. We've kept the old Earth Defense Force vessels visible and active. Slow, outdated ships that match what they expect from us. As long as they don't look too hard at Mars or the lunar far side, we should maintain the illusion." Minji's phone buzzed. She looked at the message and closed her eyes. "Nari says the Council is watching our response carefully. Other Tier 3 species are watching too. If we fight, we look dangerous and get crushed. If we comply, we look weak and get exploited worse. So we're trapped." "No." Minji opened her eyes. "We're playing a longer game. They want resources? We give them resources. But we give them from our oldest, least productive sites. We comply, but slowly, bureaucratically. We bury them in paperwork and regulations and delays. We make them work for every ton of material they take." Doyon smiled grimly. "Death by administration. Very human. Meanwhile, we accelerate everything else. How long until the Mars shipyards can produce at full capacity?" Ji-Wan says 3 months. But she recommends we stay at current levels to avoid detection. Tell her she has 2 months to reach full production. And tell her to hide it better. Whatever they're planning, it's coming faster than we thought. At the Mars shipyards, Ji-Wan received the orders with mixed feelings. Full production meant more risk of detection, but it also meant more ships. More protection for Earth when the inevitable happened. Increase construction shifts to 24/7 rotation, she told her management team. Bring online all fabrication units. I want ship production doubled within 6 weeks. The power consumption will be noticeable, Tyann warned. Council sensors might pick it up. Then we make it look like something else. Industrial expansion, colony development, mining operations. Create false data streams that explain the power usage. Make it boring enough that they don't look closer. The team dispersed to their tasks. Ji-Wan walked through the construction bay, watching ships take shape. Each one represented years of research, development, and testing. Each one was a secret that could get humanity crushed if discovered too soon. Her communicator buzzed. Private channel encrypted. She stepped into a soundproof office and accepted the call. Ambassador Nari appeared on the screen. Dr. Ji-Wan, how are the preparations going? On schedule. We'll be ready when needed. I hope we're not needed. We all hope that. Nari looked tired. More tired than Ji-Wan had ever seen her. I need to tell you something. Yesterday, a Tier 2 species called the Rithian Collective requested emergency aid. They have a planetary plague. Millions dying. They asked the Council for help. What did the Council do? They formed a committee to study the request. The committee will report back in 6 months. The plague will kill everyone in 3 months. Ji-Wan felt sick. That's murder. That's politics. The Rithians don't have resources the Council wants. They don't have military power. They're just another species that's convenient to ignore. The Council has done this before. They'll do it again. We could help them, Ji-Wan said. Our medical research, our biotech. We could at least try. I proposed that. The Council rejected it. Sighed Tier 3 species lack the sophistication for such important work. They'd rather let millions die than accept that we might be capable of helping. Ji-Wan was silent. There were no words for that kind of casual cruelty. Keep building the ships, Nari said softly, because this system isn't broken. It's working exactly as intended. It just isn't intended to help anyone except the powerful. The call ended. Ji-Wan sat in the dark office, thinking about millions of people dying while politicians debated, thinking about how the galaxy worked. About who it worked for. She understood now why the ships were necessary. Back in the Sol system, Hyan watched the Vreth fleet complete their resource collection. They had taken 42% of Jupiter's helium-3 reserves instead of the agreed 40%. They had seized 3 additional asteroids that weren't on the approved list. And they had done it all with the casual arrogance of people who knew no one would stop them. Thel Carax contacted the Horizon one final time before departing. Your compliance is noted, human. The Council will remember that you know your place. He paused, and something that might have been a smile crossed his alien features. We will return in 6 months for the next collection. Perhaps we will require more next time. The galaxy is uncertain, and your protection grows more expensive. The transmission ended. The fleet began moving toward the edge of the system, their massive ships accelerating away from human space. Hyan's communications officer, a young woman named Seal, spoke up. Captain, should we send an all-clear to Earth Command? Not yet. Hyan studied his sensors. Something felt wrong. Keep monitoring them. Full scans until they're completely out of the system. It took 3 hours. 3 hours of watching the fleet move away. And then, just before they activated their faster-than-light drives, Hyan's sensors picked up something. Captain, they're deploying something. Small objects. Dozens of them. Seal's fingers flew across her controls. They're not moving. Just sitting there in space. Sensor buoys, Hyan realized. They're leaving surveillance behind. They want to monitor everything we do. He immediately opened a channel to Earth Command. This is Horizon. The Council fleet has departed, but they've left monitoring stations throughout the system. They're watching us. Everything we do from this point forward, they'll see. Admiral Doyen's voice came back, calm and controlled. Understood, Horizon. We expected something like this. Proceed with counter-surveillance protocols. And Hyan, tell your crew they performed well. Compliance under pressure takes a different kind of courage. Hyan wasn't sure he agreed. Compliance felt like surrender. But he trusted Doyen, trusted Minji, trusted that there was a plan he wasn't seeing yet. Yes, sir, he said. Across human space, the wheels began turning faster. On Earth, Minji authorized the activation of Protocol Silence in full. Every advanced research facility went into lockdown. Every military installation disguised itself. Every cutting-edge technology disappeared from official records. Humanity had shown the Council what they wanted to see: a compliant, weak, primitive species. And while the Council congratulated themselves on another successful resource extraction, they missed what was happening in the shadows. 200 ships in secret construction became 300, then 400. The finest minds of humanity worked around the clock on weapons, defenses, and strategies. Not to conquer, not to expand, but to survive what was coming, because everyone could feel it now. The storm building, the pressure increasing. The Council had drawn a line, but that line kept moving, kept demanding more, kept taking more. Hyan looked out at the stars and wondered where humanity's line was. How far they would be pushed before they pushed back. How much they would endure before enough was enough. He had a feeling they would find out soon. 1 year changed everything. The Council's appetite grew with each passing month. First it was resources. Then it was technology databases. Then biological samples from Earth's ecosystems. Then access to human genetic research. Each demand came with the same justification: integration into galactic knowledge networks. Each demand was actually theft dressed up in diplomatic language. Ambassador Nari stood before the Council for what felt like the 1,000th time. Her patience, legendary among human diplomats, was wearing thin. But she kept her voice steady as she addressed the chamber. Earth formally requests a review of its Tier 3 classification. We have been Council members for 15 years. We have met every requirement. We have contributed resources, shared knowledge, and participated in all Council activities. Under Article 47 of the Council Charter, we are entitled to a status review. The chamber was silent. Then the Pelphic Chancellor spoke, its crystalline voice cold. Request denied. Earth's classification remains appropriate. May I ask the reason for denial? The Council does not explain its decisions to Tier 3 species. This session is concluded. Nari felt something crack inside her. 15 years of diplomacy. 15 years of patience. 15 years of being treated like children, who should be grateful for scraps from the table. And now they wouldn't even give a reason. She bowed, as protocol demanded, and returned to her seat. Around her, she could feel the other Tier 3 species watching. Some with sympathy, others with resignation. All of them trapped in the same system. After the session, as she walked through the station corridors, a Rithian approached her. The species was nearly extinct now. The plague had killed most of them. The few survivors lived as refugees on other worlds. Ambassador Nari, the Rithian said quietly, I wanted to thank you for trying to help us, for offering your medical research. I'm sorry it wasn't enough, Nari replied, her heart heavy. It was more than anyone else offered. The Council let us die because we had nothing they wanted. They will do the same to Earth someday, if Earth has nothing they want, or if Earth becomes too inconvenient. The Rithian moved away, leaving Nari standing alone in the corridor. The words echoed in her mind. The truth she had been avoiding for months, maybe years. The council wasn't going to change. It wasn't going to be fair. It was designed to concentrate power in the hands of a few species and keep everyone else subordinate. And humanity could play the game perfectly, could follow every rule. And it would never matter, because the game was rigged from the start. She sent an encrypted message to Earth. Just 3 words. No more waiting. Hyan was reviewing sensor data when the priority alert came through. Council fleet entering the Sol system. Again, but this time it was different. This time there were 50 ships instead of 30. And they weren't heading for Jupiter. They were heading for Earth. Captain, the fleet is requesting immediate access to Earth's orbital facilities, all planetary databases, and permission to land inspection teams on the surface, CL reported, her voice tight with stress. Inspection teams? For what? The answer came directly from Thel Carax. His image filled the view screen, and this time there was no pretense of courtesy. The Council has received reports of unauthorized military development in human territories. We are here to conduct a full compliance inspection. You will grant us access to all facilities, all databases, and all vessels. Refusal will be considered an act of aggression against the Council. We have conducted no unauthorized development, Hyan said, choosing his words carefully. All our activities are within the bounds of our classification. That will be determined by our inspection. You have 2 hours to grant access. If access is not granted, we will assume hostile intent and respond accordingly. The transmission cut. Hyan immediately contacted Earth Command. Admiral Doyan appeared on his screen, and Hyan was shocked to see him smiling. Sir, they're demanding full access. If they inspect Mars or the lunar facilities, they won't, Doyan interrupted. 2 hours. That's actually perfect timing. Continue normal protocols, Captain. Trust me. The call ended, leaving Hyan confused and worried. What could possibly be perfect about this situation? On Earth, President Minji sat in the command center with Admiral Doyan and the entire military leadership. On the screens around them, the Council fleet deployed in threatening formations around Earth. They've gotten bolder, General Yuna observed. She was young for her rank, only 35, but her mind for strategy was brilliant. They're not even pretending this is about resources anymore. This is dominance. They want to put us in our place permanently. They've made a mistake, Doyan said. They've brought 50 warships into our home system. They've issued an ultimatum, and they're doing it while the entire galaxy watches. Every Tier 3 and Tier 2 species is monitoring this situation right now, wondering if they're next. Minji nodded slowly. Hyan sent me something. A recording. We need to hear it first. She played the file. It was Thel Carax speaking to Hyan in what the Vreth commander thought was a private conversation 3 months ago. But Hyan had recorded everything. Your species was evaluated long ago, Thel Carax's voice said. You have potential, which makes you dangerous. Better to keep you small, compliant, and useful. The Council doesn't want effective partners. It wants obedient servants. The recording continued. Thel Carax laughed about the Rithian plague, made jokes about Tier 3 species being pets instead of members. And then came the threat that changed everything. Your homeworld has 7 billion souls. It would be unfortunate if compliance failures led to instability measures. We have protocols for dealing with species that forget their place. Those protocols are very effective and very permanent. The room was silent when the recording ended. Minji looked at each person around the table. These were the people who would decide humanity's future in the next few hours. He's threatening genocide, she said quietly. Not subtly, not implicitly, directly. If we don't obey, they'll kill us all. Do we comply? Someone asked, "Why you NIV'd?" It was a sharp, bitter sound. Comply with what? They'll never stop. Next month, it will be something else. Next year, something worse. Compliance is just slow death instead of fast death. Then what do you recommend? Minji asked. We show them what humanity really is. We've been quiet for 15 years. We've let them think we're weak. We've prepared for this exact moment. Now we use everything we've built. Minji looked at Admiral Doyon. Is the fleet ready? Yes, ma'am. 437 ships. All crews at full readiness. All weapons operational. Ji-Wan's fusion drives have exceeded all projections. Taiyang's weapon systems are ready. We've run every simulation. We know their tactics, their weaknesses, their command structures. We've been studying them for 15 years, while they barely bothered to learn our names. And if we do this, there's no going back. No, ma'am. But there's no going back from doing nothing either. They've made it clear we submit completely or we die. I'd rather die fighting than live on my knees. Minji closed her eyes, thought about her children, about the 7 billion people depending on her decision, about humanity's future. She opened her eyes. Send Fel-Carax's recording to every council species, every news network, every diplomatic channel. Let the galaxy hear what the council really thinks of them. Let everyone know what kind of system they're living in. And then? Doyon asked. And then we lift protocol silence. Show them everything. The ships, the weapons, the technology. Show them that humanity isn't weak. We're patient. And there's a difference. Doyon smiled. With pleasure, ma'am. What should I tell Hyan? Tell him to get clear. Because in 1 hour, the Mars shipyards are going to decloak. And the Council is going to learn that threatening humanity was the worst mistake they ever made. Across human space, the order went out. Protocol silence became protocol thunder. Hidden facilities powered up. Weapon systems activated. And in orbit around Mars, 400 ships dropped their stealth fields simultaneously. The Council sensors went crazy. Alarms blared on every ship in Fel-Carax's fleet. They had been surrounding Earth, confident in their overwhelming force. Now they were staring at a human fleet that outnumbered them 8-1, with technology that shouldn't exist. Fel-Carax's face appeared on every human communication channel. For the first time, he looked uncertain. What is this? Your classification limits do not permit. Our classification was never about what we could do. Admiral Doyon's voice cut across him. It was about what we chose to show you. You thought patience was weakness. You mistook silence for inability. You threatened genocide against 7 billion people. Now you face the consequences. The Council will destroy you for this. The Council can try. But first, they'll have to explain to every species in the galaxy why they threatened to exterminate an entire civilization. Check your communication networks, Commander. That recording you made? The one where you admitted everything? It's currently being broadcast to every world in Council space. You're bluffing, am I? Look at your own intelligence reports. Watch them come in. The galaxy is watching, Commander. And they're not watching us. They're watching you. Fel-Carax's screen went dark. Across the Council territories, the recording played. Species that had suffered under the Council's thumb heard their own experiences validated. Tier 3 worlds realized they weren't alone. And the powerful species that ran the Council scrambled to do damage control, but the damage was done. The truth was out, and humanity stood ready to defend itself. The first battle happened 47 minutes after the human fleet decloaked. Fel-Carax, faced with the impossible choice of retreating in humiliation or fighting against superior numbers, chose pride over wisdom. His 50 warships formed attack formations and opened fire on the human vessels. Defending Earth Dot was the last mistake. Many of them would make G1 watched from the bridge of the flagship. Unity, as her fusion drives, performed exactly as designed. Human ships moved through space with an agility that made the Council vessels look like they were standing still. The massive Vreth dreadnoughts were built for overwhelming firepower and heavy armor. They had never needed to be fast because no one had ever challenged them before. Now they faced an opponent who refused to stand and trade blows. "Enemy dreadnought targeting us," reported the tactical officer. "Plasma cannons charging." "Evasive pattern Delta 7, Admiral Doyon ordered calmly. "All ships, execute dispersal formation." The human fleet scattered like a school of fish avoiding a predator. The Vreth plasma cannons fired, their massive bolts of energy passing through empty space where the human ships had been seconds before. Before the Council ships could recharge, human vessels struck back. Taiyang's graviton disruptors proved as effective in combat as they had in testing. The weapons created localized gravity wells that bypassed standard energy shielding entirely, crushing internal systems without breaching hulls. Ships didn't explode. They simply went dark, their crews alive, but their vessels completely disabled. 3 enemy ships neutralized, the tactical officer announced. No casualties on our side. The battle continued for 47 minutes. The Council ships fought with the desperation of people who had never expected to lose. But they were fighting a war they didn't understand against an enemy they had completely misread. When Fel-Carax finally ordered retreat, 31 of his 50 ships were drifting hulks. The remaining 19 fled the system, their faster-than-light drives engaging the moment they cleared Earth's gravity well. Not a single human ship had been destroyed. Only 7 had taken damage, and that damage was minimal. "Do we pursue?" asked the tactical officer. Doyon shook his head. "No, we disable their ships to protect ourselves, not to kill. Let them run. Let them tell the Council what happened here." He opened a channel that broadcast across all frequencies, ensuring that every species in range would hear. "This is Admiral Doyon of the Human Defense Fleet. We did not start this conflict. We did not want this conflict, but we will not be threatened with extermination in our own home system. The Council will reconvene. All species will have an equal voice. Or we will dismantle this corrupt system ourselves and build something better." The transmission ended. Around Earth, the human fleet held position, making no aggressive moves. They had proven they could fight. Now they were proving they could show restraint. But across the galaxy, Doyon's words and the footage of the battle spread like wildfire. Species that had suffered under the Council's hierarchy watched in amazement. For the first time in thousands of years, someone had said no to the Council and backed it up with force. The responses came quickly. Small species, Tier 3 and Tier 2, began broadcasting messages of support. Some offered to join humanity's cause. Others simply thanked Earth for showing that resistance was possible. The Vreth Empire's response was predictable. Within days, they mobilized their full military might. 12,000 warships, the largest fleet ever assembled, began moving toward human space. Their message was clear: humanity would be made an example of. The upstart species would be crushed so thoroughly that no one would ever dare challenge. The Council again, on the Bridge of Unity. Hyen stood beside Admiral Doyon, looking at the tactical displays showing the approaching armada. It was terrifying. 12,000 ships against humanity's 400. "We can't win against those numbers," Hyen said quietly. Doyon smiled. "We don't need to win a straight fight. We need to win a smart fight. Tell me, Captain, what did you learn in your years observing the Council?" Hyen thought about it. They're arrogant. They rely on overwhelming force. They've never had to adapt because nothing has ever challenged them before. Exactly. They're bringing 12,000 ships to crush 400. But those 12,000 ships need supplies, fuel, ammunition, food for their crews. And all of that comes from specific supply stations along their route. Hyen's eyes widened. We hit their logistics. Better, we destroy their logistics. The Vreth Armada is impressive, but it's designed for short, overwhelming campaigns. It's not designed for extended operations far from home. If we cut their supply lines, they become 12,000 very expensive targets floating in space. Over the next 2 weeks, human ships executed the most sophisticated military operation in Earth's history. Small strike teams, using their superior speed and stealth capabilities, hit Vreth supply depots across 3 sectors. They didn't engage in prolonged battles. They struck fast, destroyed critical infrastructure, and disappeared before reinforcements could arrive. Ji-Wan led one of these teams personally. Her ship, the Pioneer, attacked a major fuel depot on the edge of Vreth territory. They used graviton disruptors to collapse the station's containment fields, venting billions of liters of fuel into space. No one died. The crew had time to evacuate, but the station was completely destroyed. Target neutralized, she reported. No casualties, no pursuit. Moving to next objective. Across the warfront, the same pattern repeated. Human ships were everywhere and nowhere. The Vreth, used to enemies who stood and fought, had no effective counter to opponents who refused to engage on their terms. The massive armada continued toward Earth, but it was slowing. Ships ran low on fuel. Supply problems mounted. The crews, expecting a quick campaign, found themselves on half rations as food shipments failed to arrive. And then Hyen, now promoted to Chief Military Intelligence Officer, revealed the masterstroke. Admiral, we have 70 ships positioned around the Vreth homeworld. Doyan raised an eyebrow. I thought we had 60. We built 10 more. Seemed like a good time for it. They're in stealth mode, undetected. The Vreth sent their entire military to crush us. Their homeworld is practically undefended. Doyan looked at the tactical display. The Vreth Armada was still 3 weeks from Earth, and already struggling with supply problems. If they continued, they'd arrive with half their ships running on fumes. If they turned back to defend their homeworld, they'd lose all momentum and admit defeat. Open a channel to Thel-Karax, Doyan ordered. Let's offer him a choice. The Vreth commander appeared on screen. He looked tired, older than he had weeks ago. The reality of fighting an enemy he didn't understand was clearly taking its toll. What do you want, human? To prevent unnecessary death. Your fleet is running out of supplies. We've destroyed your logistics chain. You can continue toward Earth, but you'll arrive with ships that can barely fight. Or you can turn back to defend your homeworld, which is currently surrounded by our vessels. You're bluffing. Doyan transmitted coordinates. Check these positions. Use your long-range sensors. See for yourself. There was a long pause. Hyen could imagine the chaos on the Vreth flagship as their sensors confirmed what Doyan had said. 70 human ships, all equipped with weapons that could destroy cities, positioned around their undefended homeworld. If you destroy our world, we will destroy Earth, Thel-Karax said, but his voice lacked conviction. We won't destroy your world. We don't want to destroy anything. Look at every battle we've fought. We disable ships. We don't kill crews. We destroy infrastructure, but we give people time to evacuate. We're not the monsters here. We just refuse to be victims. Then what do you want? Leave Sol system. Return to Vreth space. We both stand down. And then we talk. Really talk. About reforming the council. About creating a system that works for everyone, not just the powerful. The Council will never accept that. The Council doesn't have a choice anymore. Check your intelligence reports. Half the Tier 3 species are preparing to leave the Council. Tier 2 species are refusing to pay their contributions. The system is collapsing. You can help build something better, or you can go down defending something rotten. Thelcarax was silent for a long moment. Finally, he spoke. I need to consult with the Vreth High Command. You have 12 hours. After that, we start assuming your intentions are hostile. The transmission ended. Hyen looked at Admiral Doyan with new respect. You really think he'll stand down? I think he's smart enough to see he's lost. This isn't about military victory anymore. It's about salvaging something from the disaster he created. 11 hours later, the Vreth Armada began turning around. The massive fleet, once so threatening, now looked like what it was, a collection of ships limping home. Their supplies exhausted and their pride shattered. The human ships around the Vreth homeworld withdrew, as promised. They had made their point. Force wasn't about destroying your enemy. It was about making your enemy realize that fighting was more costly than talking. President, Minji broadcast to Earth and all human colonies. We have defended ourselves. We have shown the galaxy that we will not be bullied or threatened. But we have also shown restraint. We have proven that strength and wisdom can coexist. Now begins the harder work building a galaxy where this kind of conflict never needs to happen again. On the Bridge of Unity, Admiral Doyan looked at his crew. Young men and women who had trained for war but hoped for peace. They had performed brilliantly, not just as warriors, but as representatives of what humanity could be. Well done, he said simply. All of you. Now let's finish this properly. The galaxy watched and waited to see what would happen next. Humanity had won the battle. The real question was whether they could win the peace. 3 months after the standoff ended, representatives from every council species gathered on Talver Prime. The chamber looked the same as it always had, but everything else was different. For the first time in 10,000 years, the seating arrangement had changed. There were no tiers, no high seats and low seats. Every species sat on the same level dot. The change was symbolic, but symbols mattered. President Minji walked into the chamber with Ambassador Nari at her side. They had chosen to represent Earth together. The leader who had made the hard decisions and the diplomat who had endured years of disrespect while gathering the intelligence. That made victory possible. The Pelthic Chancellor floated at the center of the room. The ancient being had survived 10,000 years of galactic politics. It would survive this too, if it could adapt. This summit is unprecedented, the Chancellor announced. We are here to address the crisis that has brought us to the edge of galactic war. Earth has demanded reforms. The Vreth have suffered military defeat. The council structure has been challenged. We must find a path forward. The path forward is simple, Minji said, standing to address the assembly. The old council was designed to maintain power for a few species at the expense of many. That system failed. It failed the Rethians who died while the council debated. It failed every Tier 3 species that contributed resources and received nothing but contempt in return. It failed even the powerful species, because it created resentment and instability instead of cooperation. She pulled up holographic displays that filled the chamber. Data, evidence, years of compiled information, showing council corruption, resource hoarding, and the deliberate suppression of emerging species. This is what the old system created: inequality, exploitation, casual cruelty dressed up as order. We're not here to destroy the council. We're here to transform it into what it should have been from the beginning, a true union of equals. A Vreth representative stood. Not Thelcarax, he had been removed from command and was awaiting trial for his threats. This was someone new, younger, with eyes that showed intelligence instead of arrogance. Earth defeated our fleet. You could have destroyed our whole world. You showed restraint when you had every reason to show vengeance. Why? Minji met his gaze. Because vengeance solves nothing. We didn't fight to become the new oppressors. We fought to end oppression. If we had destroyed your world, we would have become exactly what we were fighting against. Ji-Wan stepped forward, bringing with her datapads that she distributed to nearby representatives. These contain technological advances humanity is willing to share freely. Medical research that could have saved the Rithians. Agricultural techniques that could feed billions. Energy systems that reduce environmental damage. We're not offering these as trade goods or bargaining chips. We're giving them freely to prove that cooperation benefits everyone more than competition. There was silence in the chamber. Species looked at the data, and Haiyan could see the moment they realized it was real. Real solutions to real problems, offered without conditions. A small, insectoid being from a Tier 3 species stood. If Earth shares this knowledge freely, what does Earth want in return? Equality, Nari answered. A voice that matters. A vote that counts. The same respect given to any other species. We don't want dominance. We want dignity. The debate that followed lasted for 6 days. Species that had been allies of the old council fought to maintain their privileges. Species that had been exploited pushed for radical reform. And humanity, with the military power to dictate terms, instead worked to find compromise. On the 4th day, a representative from the Rithian survivors spoke. There were only 10,000 of them left from a population that had once numbered billions. My people are dying. Our civilization is ending. But I want to speak about why. The Council had the resources to help us. They had the technology. They chose not to use it because helping us wasn't profitable, wasn't strategic. We were inconvenient, so we were abandoned. The Rithian looked directly at the Pelthic Chancellor. The old system killed my species. If we reform the Council, if we create something better, it won't bring my people back. But it might save the next species that faces disaster. That's worth more than revenge. That's worth everything. The words hung in the air. And slowly, the resistance to reform began to crumble. Because everyone in that room knew could have been their species. Their world. Their civilization abandoned because it wasn't convenient to help. On the 6th day, the vote came. The old council structure was formally dissolved. A new charter was written with input from all species, regardless of former classification. The key provisions were simple but revolutionary. Every species received equal representation and equal voting power. No more tiers. No more hierarchies based on age or military strength. Resource sharing would be voluntary and compensated fairly. No more forced contributions. A coalition peacekeeping force would replace the enforcement fleets. And that force would be commanded by someone who had proven the ability to use force wisely. Admiral Doyon stood before the assembly as they offered him command of the new peacekeeping fleet. I accept on 2 conditions. First, the fleet will be composed of ships and personnel from all member species. No single species will dominate. Second, the fleet's mission will be protection and disaster response, not enforcement of political will. If we're building something better, it starts with how we use power. The conditions were accepted unanimously. Vel-Karax's trial took place in the same chamber. The evidence against him was overwhelming. His own recorded words, his threats of genocide, his abuse of power. But the new council faced a choice about what kind of justice they wanted. Haiyan testified at the trial. He played the recordings, explained the threats, and then, surprisingly, he recommended mercy. Vel-Karax represents the old system, a system where power meant you could do whatever you wanted to those beneath you. If we execute him or imprison him forever, we're just showing that the new system works the same way. Instead, I recommend he serve the Council by working to repair the damage he caused. Help rebuild the Rithian population. Contribute to species he once threatened. Let him prove that people can change when the system changes. The vote was close, but mercy won. Thelcarax would spend the next 20 years in service to the species he had wronged. Some called it justice. Some called it weakness. Humanity called it a chance for something better than revenge. 6 months after the summit, Minji stood in the rebuilt council chambers and watched the first session of the new government. Representatives from hundreds of species working together, debating, sometimes arguing, but all of them equals. Do you think it will last? Nari asked quietly. Nothing lasts forever, Minji replied. But we've given it the best chance possible. We proved that change is possible. That's more than most civilizations ever accomplish. On Mars, Jiwan walked through the shipyards that were now open to the public. Engineers from 30 different species worked alongside human technicians, building the first collaborative deep space exploration vessel. The ship would be called the Unity, and it would carry a crew from 20 species on a mission to explore the galactic rim. Is it strange? Tai Yang asked her. We built these facilities to prepare for war. Now we're using them for exploration. Not strange, right? This is what we should have been doing all along. War was necessary to get here, but it was never the goal. The goal was always this working together. She looked at the ship taking shape. It was beautiful. A symbol of what the galaxy could be when species cooperated instead of competed. Hyan walked through the new council chambers where he now served as Earth's primary representative. Other Tier 3 species former Tier 3 species, he corrected himself, greeted him as an equal. Some even greeted him as a friend. He passed the memorial that had been installed in the main hall. A simple plaque listing the names of the 6 billion Rithians who had died. Below their names, a promise carved in every council language. Never again. All voices matter. It was ambitious. Maybe impossible. But it was worth trying for. Admiral Doyan sat in his office aboard the peacekeeping flagship, looking at reports from across the galaxy. Disputes settled peacefully. Disasters responded to quickly. Species helping species without being forced or bribed. His aide seal brought him his daily briefing. Admiral, there's been a request from the Pelthic. They want to know if you regret how everything happened. If you regret the conflict. Doyan thought about it. Thought about the battles, the risks, the moments when everything could have gone wrong. Thought about humanity finally being treated as equals instead of children. Tell them no. We gave the old council every chance to change. Every opportunity to be fair. They chose to push us. They learned what every bully eventually learns. The quiet ones are quiet for a reason. He looked at the image of Earth on his wall. 7 billion people living their lives, mostly unaware of how close they had come to extinction. How close they had come to being just another species, crushed under the weight of a corrupt system. We were quiet, he said softly. We were patient. We learned and prepared and hoped it wouldn't be necessary. But when they pushed too far, when they threatened everything we loved, we stood up. Not because we wanted to fight, because we had to. And that made all the difference. Across the galaxy, species that had once been powerless now had voices. Systems that had been exploited were now protected. And humanity, the species that had remained quiet until the council went too far, had helped create something better, not perfect. Never perfect. But better. And in the end, better was enough. The story of how humanity joined the Galactic Council was written in history books across 100 worlds. It became a lesson taught to young beings of every species. About the danger of exploiting others. About the power of patience combined with preparation. about how systems that rely on oppression will eventually face those they oppressed. But most importantly, it became a reminder that change is always possible, that the way things are is not the way things must be, that even the oldest, most powerful systems can be transformed if people are willing to stand up and demand better. Humanity had remained quiet, learning and preparing. And when the Council finally went too far, humanity didn't just push back. They pushed forward, toward a future where no species would ever have to make the choice between submission and survival. They built a galaxy where all voices mattered, and that was worth everything it took to get there.